Again, good morning, everybody. My name is Jonathan Harris. I'm a CS here at Blue Triangle. I've been with the company for a little over a year now, and I come from a 30-plus year background in back-end systems load and performance testing. With me today is Kirsten Ross from our product team. Kirsten?
Hello, I'm Kirsten Ross. I'm a product manager here at Blue Triangle, and I've been with the company for going on 2 years. My background prior to Blue Triangle was product management focused in the healthcare industry.
Okay, thank you, Kirsten. All right, for the agenda today, I'd like to begin with a little bit of background information on what system availability is and why it's important to keep an eye on it. Then I'll go over a brief overview of the executive availability report that Kirsten will demo. We'll demo its configuration and go over how it's laid out and what is included in the report. After the demo, I'd like to talk through some of the best practices as it pertains to synthetics that drive the executive availability report and some additional functionality that we have that directly affects the reports that are generated. Afterwards, we'll have some time for some questions that you may have regarding what we covered today. What you will learn as we've just gone over the agenda of what we'll be talking about today, you should have a basic understanding of what system availability is and how we track it, and you should be able to configure and run the executive availability report. In addition, since I'll be going over some best practices, you can take a look at your synthetics and see how they are configured in regards to the best practices that I'm going to go over today. So without further ado, what is system availability? It's a number or a metric that tracks your system's ability to service your customers. However, system availability is actually referring to two aspects of interactivity. The first being availability as it pertains to connectivity. Can your users talk to your applications? You say, hey system, are you there? And it replies. It doesn't matter what that reply is, it just matters that you get a response. It's like if I were to look at you and say hello, and you acknowledge by either saying hello or just nodding. Either way, contact is made and a two-way interaction is achieved. Now, hand in hand is reliability. Does the system we connect with respond to our requests as we expect it to? Hey system, how much is 2 plus 2? It can respond 4 or some other number. It can respond with an error message or even no response. Of course, we hope we get 4. The point is that availability encompasses both connectivity and reliability. System availability can be measured in a number of ways. For instance, monitoring tools. Network monitoring, like performing a ping, is an example of a way to establish connectivity. But it doesn't talk about reliability. Tools that monitor CPU or memory usage can also talk to system being up and running, but again, does not measure reliability. Log files can be analyzed to determine if connectivity has been achieved, and depending upon the level of logging, whether user requests are being responded to. So maybe reliability can be established this way. The third listed here, automation tools, is the best way to establish reliability, and inherently connectivity as well. Automation refers to synthetics, using a method of real user emulation to make requests to a system, receive responses, and verify the system responded correctly. I mark this one with an asterisk since it is how Blue Triangle measures availability. If you think about it, in most cases, there are a million incorrect ways a system can respond, but only one way to respond correctly or reliably. Now that we've defined system availability, why does it matter? What are the possible consequences of low availability? Let's take an extreme example. What if a 911 call center loses connectivity to fire or police stations or other emergency response systems? What about healthcare systems? A low availability can result in delayed or canceled appointments, can lead to delayed patient treatments. If providers can't access patient records, it could also result in delayed treatments or even medical errors. Financial systems. Low availability can result in financial losses to an institution and its customers. E-commerce. The biggest thing would be lost revenue. If customers can't find what they're looking for or can't purchase, that's a problem. No matter the industry, low availability can lead to customer dissatisfaction, loss of customers, and even damaged reputation, among other things. If your organization has a mandate regarding system availability, then you can track it using the Executive Availability Report. If your industry is overseen by regulatory compliance, they may define levels of availability that, if not maintained, can result in fines or legal actions. So again, use the Executive Availability Report to track it. As I mentioned before, Blue Triangle uses synthetics to track availability. A synthetic monitor will fail if it can't connect, and that lowers the availability score. If you configure your synthetics to verify data coming back, typically text on the page, if it's found, great, a reliable response. If not, again, it lowers the availability score. Now, I keep calling it a score, but remember, it's a percentage of time the system is available and reliable, so it's based on 100%. The calculation for availability is based on the amount of time a monitor is in either an error or a non-error state. The longer a monitor is in an error state, the lower your availability score. We have our original version of the report, version 1, which calculates year-to-date, month-to-date, as well as a 7-day availability. Version 2, which we're covering today, expands on the time frame along with some additional enhancements. So with that, I'll hand off to Kirsten to showcase the Executive Availability Report version 2.
So I'm going to show you how to configure one of these reports, and then we'll actually talk about the report itself. When you are in your Blue Triangle portal, you are going to go into Menu, Alerts and Automated Reports, and then Create Automated Report. And this is going to be a synthetic report. And if you scroll to the bottom of this screen, you want to select Executive Availability V2. And here's where you can start configuring. So let's say that for this V2 report, we are going to make it a weekly report, and it's going to default to enabled. The time zone is going to default. And I'm naming this weekly because you do have some report time period options. So you can select a rolling time frame, you can select month to date or month prior. But because I want a weekly report, I'm going to select rolling time frame and I'm going to put in 7 days. Now we're going to start running this report tomorrow. And because this is a weekly report, I kind of want my emails to correspond with it. So I'm going to actually have it email me every 7 days as well. So basically, I've just set up a weekly report. So right now, the way this is set for recipients is that I'm my own recipient of this report and there are no others. But if you have multiple folks or a distribution group that you wanted to enter in here, then that would be perfectly acceptable. You can configure the subject line of the email. You also have the option of including a screenshot or not. And then down here at the very bottom, you can set your thresholds. So it's going to default to 90% for critical with an NA on warning. And if you want to change either or both of those, you have the ability to do so. So we're going to click Next. And in this configuration screen, if there are certain monitors that you don't need to see in this report, for example, or any other filtering on the content groups, page groups, traffic segments, that kind of thing, you could do that here. And then it is as simple as clicking Create. So our report is now queued up, and we're going to get an email tomorrow letting us know that the report has run. And I want to talk through a report because this is what you'll see when you click the link in your email, is you'll be taken directly to this report. So up at the top of the screen, it shows your report name, when it was run, what time period is this report providing data for, and what the thresholds are that are set. So some of what you configured is visible up at the top of this screen. The next thing you have are these 3 top cards that are going to show the availability, and they're going to default to the uptime. So year-to-date uptime, 81.55%. If you need to see the downtime instead, you can just simply click on them. And all 3 of these cards will behave in the same way. So for year-to-date, month-to-date, or that report time period, which again you can see right here, you can look at uptime or downtime. The view that we're looking at right here is the most condensed view that you can get. So if you need just something that's a very higher level summary view, you can set it up to look just like this, and that should accomplish that purpose. But let's kind of dive into what else is in here. We're going to talk about the rows first. So the rows are basically corresponding to monitors. And when you open it up, you can see that you have them grouped by their monitor group and then also split out by monitor name. So you can open it or close it with the plus or minus. You can expand all, and you can collapse all. So I'm going to leave this top group open and just point out that these couple of monitors were running previously, but you can see there's NAs. They're not running anymore, so they're really impacting the year-to-date availability. So I'm going to go into the second group here, and we can see that we have nothing that's throwing like a critical warning, nothing that has changed color here, but we can see that we have some numbers that are not necessarily 100%, but they're still good. When we click on detailed view, what you're going to see is that this column is going to expand to show each one of the dates. So now we have still our availability year to date, month to date. We have the report time period, but now we have a column for each one of those days in the report time period. So if you needed to dig into a specific day, an availability percentage number that's coming back that is maybe not as expected, or just to get more of that detailed view, you do have that option as you're viewing this report. Now, if you need to ever go back and look for a report that has previously been run and you don't have your email in front of you, you can go into the alerts and automated reports, automated report, and when this page first loads, you'll see what you have configured. And if you need to go into the reports log for the reports that have actually generated, you have this little button over on the right-hand side that will show you all of the reports that have been generated. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it back over to Jonathan to talk a little bit more about some additional options in how you can use these reports.
Thank you, Kirsten. That was awesome. Now, since the executive availability report is powered by synthetic monitors, I'd like to cover some best practices. And these mainly apply towards the executive availability report and creating the synthetics for it. But these are general rules in terms of scripting. So in any case, we have two types of real browser monitors, single page and multi-page. The single page monitor does just that, calls a single page. Under the error tracking section of the monitor configuration when you set it up, you can add text checks. You can verify text that should be on the page and also for an error message. If the verified text is not on the page, the monitor fails. If the error text is found, the monitor fails, which brings us to retry on error. This is a mechanism to kind of thwart or get past some false negatives. So if a monitor runs and it fails, by turning on the retry on error, it will then immediately run that monitor again. I have listed here a few of the reasons why a monitor would fail. So we have an HTTP 400 or 500 response, so a bad request or a server error. We have timeouts. I mentioned earlier about you make a request and you don't get a response back. That's called a timeout. We talked about the verifying text, the text for failures. There's also script errors. Typically, you're not going to see that on a single page real browser monitor, but you'll see mostly that occurs in the multi-step, which we're going to talk about next. Finally, I just want to put this up. The retry on error is applicable only for execution frequencies of 15 minutes or longer. So we do have options to run these monitors 1 minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15, and then a bunch of hours all the way up to 24 hours in there. So the retry on error is only applicable if it's 15 minutes or longer. Now, when it comes to monitors, we have a couple of questions. One, are the synthetic monitors running often enough? Especially when we're dealing with system availability, you would want them to be running constantly. So you wouldn't want to run it once a day, because if the monitor has a failure, then you're going to be in that failed state until it has a chance to run again and pass. So you need to make sure that you're running your monitors for the executive availability report often enough. Secondly, we have, are the synthetic monitors running from a wide enough geography? So depending upon the reach of your customers, your clients, those that are accessing your system, is it just mainly just the US or is it global? We have agents across the world that you can use for testing the availability from those various geographic locations. The second type of real browser synthetic is a multi-step. So typically a multi-step is used when there are pages that you cannot access unless you must follow a sequence. For instance, you have to log in order to, let's say in a healthcare system, to be able to make an appointment or to look up your prescriptions. So in that case, we need a multi-step. So we have some best practices here for multi-steps. First is to use meaningful step names, not just step 1, step 2, step 3. In many cases, we put that in automatically for you, just you know the sequence of the pages when they occur. We do have a CDR, which is a central data repository, and use that where appropriate. Anywhere that you use type or type keys or send keys within a multi-step synthetic, the text there can be put into a CDR, which is an external data file which you can use to drive the synthetic monitor, typically used for user IDs and passwords. We do have the ability to encrypt the passwords, so it's always recommended to encrypt passwords, whether they're within the script itself, we have an option to encrypt it, or in the CDR, we can encrypt it as well. One of the big things here is one action per step that changes the browser content. I've seen many scripts where there's a single step. Now, to the left here, we can see we have a homepage step, a sign-in step, and a search step. The recommendation or the best practice with scripting is one action that changes per step. The reason for this is one of the things that we do is we take snapshots at the end of each step. So if you put multiple actions that change the screen multiple times, you're only going to get the snapshot for the last piece. If something goes wrong with any of those prior, you're not going to see that in any of the supporting result files for the synthetics. So that's the recommendation. Along with that is whenever you do have a command that causes a change to the screen, use a wait command. So either wait for text present, looking for some anchor text on the page, or for an element to be present. This is to guarantee that we do the action and we're expecting something to show up, and we make sure that it does show up. I've seen many scripts that are using pauses to kind of help with synchronization. So you can never tell for sure, or never be 100% sure if a pause will work or not in terms of synchronization. So, but sometimes pauses are needed. All right, just keep that in mind. Be mindful of step timeout. So we have a 60-second timeout per step. You make a call to a page, you have up to 60 seconds for that page to load, otherwise that step will time out. Typically, if you don't get a response from a system within 60 seconds, yeah, you've got a problem. So there is a 60-second timeout. So as I talked about before, one action per step, if you put a bunch of actions within one step, then all of those actions have to happen within that 60 seconds in order for the script to pass and continue on. And especially if you start putting pauses in there. So if you have 10 steps and put 5-second pauses between each one, 50 of your 60 seconds is already taken up by those pauses. So keep that in mind. We also have a script timeout. When you go into the configuration, the default's 120 seconds, but you can increase that up to 360 seconds. If the entire multi-step script is not complete within, if you set it to 360 seconds, then the script will time out. So you need to keep that in mind. And lastly, remember that there is a post-load delay. This is for taking of the snapshots. When a step completes, the agent that's running it will wait, and the default is 10 seconds. You can go up to 30 seconds. We'll wait that amount of time before taking that snapshot. This is because typically when you do an open command or some command that executes, if there's any JavaScript going on in the background or any other type of processing, we want to make sure that it completes what it's doing before we take that snapshot, before we move on. All right. I talked a little bit before about that retry on error. So again, we have the same thing here. If any part of that multi-step script fails and the monitor fails, we can immediately run another one. But again, keep in mind from the previous slide, it's only applicable for execution frequencies of 15 minutes or longer. Same questions apply here. Are the synthetic monitors running often enough? And are you running from the geographic dispersion that you need in order to determine availability in there? So same type of stuff. We have 2 bits of functionality that can be used with the executive availability report. Specifically, when the first one, which is masking. If a monitor fails for some reason, it can fail legitimately, that you do have a problem with either connectivity or reliability of the system, or it could be the fact that somebody went in and changed your password for your test user, and all of a sudden the script fails because it can't sign in. So in that case, we do have the masking. So under synthetic real browser error state tracking, it pulls up all of the issues, all of the monitors that are in an error state or caused an error state. And you can either on a case-by-case basis take a look and see what the issues are, and if it looks like it's an issue with the script, not your system, so it's not a real availability problem, we can mask those. So when we run the executive availability report and in other places within our portal that show availability, those can be taken out of the equation for that. We also have the ability to bulk mask as well. So you can select multiple, and then there's a bulk option to mask those in there. All right. And finally, we have maintenance windows. There are times when your system will be down. or at least potentially be down. So in the example on the left here, we have a weekend maintenance window designated as Saturday or Sunday between 2 and 6 a.m. And during that time, we are not going to be reporting on any alerts, either rum or synthetic, or in this case, we're going to pause our synthetic measurements. Considering if you do run during these periods of maintenance or periods where you know that the system is going to be down, you're not going to want to have that affect your system availability. We do have a new version of the maintenance windows coming out, which are for expired. They're kind of like ad hoc. So if you do know that there's going to be a specific time that's not a regular time that the system will be down, you'll be able to create that. That's not out yet, but that's coming. Okay, in terms of what I'm going to ask you to try, configure an executive availability report version 2 and to cover a 7-day period. Have it cover Monday through Sunday. Right now, the only option is to start the report tomorrow. So this would have to be done on a Sunday if you want a Monday to Sunday availability number in there. So we do also have online help. You can go to our help section. Time for the Q&A. We have a couple of frequently asked questions. One being, can you generate the report on demand? The answer is yes. When you go to automated reports within the portal, you find the report that you're looking for over on the right-hand side. It does have a generate button, so you can generate the report at any time. It asks you for a date for the report, at least the ending date for it, and it'll run the report according to the date you put in there. We have a frequently asked question of, is there a maximum report time frame for the executive availability report? We've been talking about a 7-day time frame. So again, the report gives you year to date, month to date, and then based on a time frame that you're looking at. Kirsten showed a 7-day or a weekly time frame. The answer is yes. You can go up to 31 days, okay, for the time frame. So the report will give you the detail for each day, or at least what the availability is for each of the monitors that you have, along with the roll-ups, and then finally the overall availability score in there. There was a question asked, can you repeat the alert process? Well, the executive availability report itself is not an alert, and there's no alert associated with that. However, we do have an alert, considering you can set up an alert on any one of the metrics that we calculate. You can set up an alert for availability in there and be able to be emailed on that should the alert trigger for that. All right, thank you very much for joining the webinar today on the Executive Availability Report. If anybody has any questions, feel free to email your CS for that. And have a good day.